Avengers EndGame was a movie for the ages. It concluded 11 years of storytelling and over 20 films from one cohesive cinematic universe into the finale of the decade. There were a ton of fan-pleasing moments, but there was one that we'd argue stood above all the others. Naturally, if you haven't seen EndGame yet, maybe add this to your watch later list, as we're gonna go full spoiler mode for this video, so you've been warned. Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. That line was the centerpiece of the 2011 film Thor, which introduced us to the God of Thunder in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As you might recall, the whole point of that movie was that Thor was deemed unworthy in the eyes of his father, Odin, due to him essentially seeking out battle and endangering the citizens of both Asgard and of Jotunheim, a planet that was under a steady truce with Asgard. Thor was subsequently stripped of his powers, including his ability to wield the magic hammer Mjolnir. Naturally, Thor finds this power just in time for the film's climactic finale, and he's been pretty worthy ever since. But is he the only one that can be called worthy? Age of Ultron, the second of the Avengers films, challenged this idea early on in the film during a party at Avengers Tower. After a successful mission taking on Hydra and recovering Loki's scepter again, the Avengers decided to let loose and enjoy some downtime. A game they decided to play was to see who, if anyone, can lift Thor's hammer, as many of the team's members thought it was some sort of trick. Thor's teammates were all proven wrong, with the hammer not budging for anyone, even the combined power of Tony and Rhodey in the respective Iron Gauntlets. But there was a glimmer of hope for one individual. Despite not being able to actually lift the hammer up, Mjolnir definitely wobbled a little bit for Captain America, suggesting that while he may not be quite so worthy yet, he's nearly there. For the duration of this scene, Thor watched his allies fail miserably at trying to lift the hammer and found the whole ordeal immensely entertaining. But when the hammer budged for Steve, Thor's face dropped for a few moments in shock that Rogers may in fact be worthy of the power of Thor, something only he's supposed to have, at least according to himself. One could also argue that he felt the hammer budge and decided not to lift it up for fear of the ramifications at that point in time. The Steve Rogers of 2015 was only just getting used to society. He probably didn't want to become declared king of Asgard. But when it came time to really get down to business with Thanos, he was able to either realize his actual potential or reveal that it was there all along. Either way, it comes to the same result. The moment paid off during the climactic battle in Avengers EndGame. In it, Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America squared off against Thanos one last time. This particular Thanos was from a different timeline and gained knowledge that he succeeded in the primary MCU timeline thanks to the shared memories of his cyborg daughter, Nebula. Knowing that he was successful but that people were trying to undo his destiny angered the Titan, and he sought to ensure that his plan would stay successful in this alternate timeline. So using primary Nebula's time-traveling device, he was able to bring back the Dark Aster to the primary timeline and face off against the Avengers and claim all the stones in one fell swoop, wiping all life out of existence this time to prevent any sort of rescue plan. So the trinity of Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America squared off against the Mad Titan yet again, and they were getting decidedly owned. Thor found himself in a particularly dire situation when Thanos disarmed him and brought Stormbreaker to his chest, mirroring Thor's attack on Thanos in Infinity War. With the axe beginning to cut into the God of Thunder, all hope seemed lost. Until Mjolnir came flying through the air and struck Thanos. Only it wasn't Thor who summoned the hammer. It was Captain America who caught the hammer while holding his shield in what has to be one of the most epic fan-pleasing moments put to film. The result is an awesome show that features Cap using both his shield and his newfound hammer at the same time, giving us an awesome moment for the character. So, how exactly can Cap hold and use Mjolnir? Unlike his golden-haired teammate who has put on a sizable beer belly in the 5 years that have passed since the decimation, Steve Rogers is still just a mortal man, not a godlike individual from Asgard. Thor even mentions to Peter Quill in Infinity War that the weapons forged at Nidavellir cannot be held by mortal men as they lack the strength to wield the weapons and that their bodies would crumble as their minds turned to madness. Like Stormbreaker, this is where Mjolnir was forged. Even though he's a super soldier, Rogers is still a man, and based on what Thor's told us about the weaponry of Nidavellir, he should not be able to lift up Mjolnir, let alone use it. So how is it that a kid from Brooklyn is able to lift a weapon worthy of a god? As mentioned, Thor only proved himself worthy of Mjolnir by the end of his 2011 solo film. In order to reclaim his powers and his hammer, he had to prove himself worthy of the title and the responsibility that comes with it. He willingly sacrificed himself to save others, and this was deemed a worthy decision fit for a prince of Asgard. In short, you must be pure of heart, brave, and selfless. So the worthy enchantment in the MCU means that you're willing to stand up for others and risk your life in order to save others, no matter what the odds are. If that means you have to die in order to let another live, then that's a worthy decision in the eyes of the Hammer. The same principle applied in the comics for others who picked up the hammer. Take Jane Foster, for example. She was diagnosed with cancer, but was also deemed worthy to become the new Thor. However, whenever she turned into Thor, the magic would undo the chemotherapy she had previously taken in, meaning that she would continue to deteriorate in due time. But her sacrifice to help others was what made her worthy to hold the hammer and channel the power of Thor, even the Asgardians who instantly distrusted her because she was an outsider. So it's not that much of a surprise that Steve was able to lift Mjolnir. Through his arc in the MCU, his main story beat was to always find a way to do the right thing no matter the cost. If that meant he had to get beaten down, he was going to get back up and keep fighting because in the end, it's not about him. That's why Steve put the plane in the water during the conclusion of the first Avengers. He was willing to put his life on the line and save millions of people and give up a life of his own. This act is likely what got Mjolnir to wiggle a bit for him during the party in Age of Ultron. The stakes are even higher, however, during the events of EndGame. Unlike the first Avenger, which saw New York City becoming at risk of being destroyed by the Red Skull, Thanos' plan in EndGame would have resulted in the death of all living things in the universe, down to the atom. A bit extreme, but the stakes were certainly higher this time. So while Rogers is already pretty powerful with his vibranium shield and the super soldier serum running through his veins, adding Mjolnir made him a force to be reckoned with. Rogers being able to lift up the hammer Mjolnir is nothing new either for those who have read the comic books, as he's lifted Thor's signature weapon numerous times in the past. Arguably, the most famous and beloved moment on the page came in the Mighty Thor number 390. At this point in the comics, Rogers has dropped the whole Captain America thing and simply goes by the Captain instead. He was also stripped of his signature shield when the government took it away from him, claiming that it was technically government property and they wanted it back. So he was having a bit of an identity crisis. He was given a replacement shield from Black Panther, not unlike what happened in Infinity War, and continued being a superhero and joins up with the Avengers. It's here that the god Set's soldiers attack the Avengers at their Hydro base, and Thor is quickly overwhelmed and loses his hammer in the middle of the conflict. He sees the hammer and wants to try and recover it for his friend and ally, but is also overrun by Set's minions in the middle of wondering how on earth he would actually move it. It's here where the overrun Cap finds the power of Thor and is able to lift Mjolnir and dispose of Set's minions with ease using the hammer. By the end, Thor is beyond content that his friend is worthy enough to lift his most treasured possession, and sees it as a sacred bond of sorts between him and Rogers. Another epic moment in the comics came during Fear Itself number 7. During this run, Odin's long-lost brother, known as the Serpent, thought it was a good idea to raise Midgard with the help of his own children, all of whom have their own hammers. They end up possessing some of the strongest characters in the Marvel Universe, so the stakes were certainly stacked against the heroes, and this fear spread throughout the realm. During these events, Rogers had retired the Captain America name and had passed it off to Bucky Barnes. But Barnes seemingly fell in battle, which brought Steve back as the original Cap to lead the heroes and regular citizens of Midgard against the Serpent. It's here where Rogers lifts the hammer Mjolnir and rallies his allies to his cause, with Avengers Assemble being yelled out as a war cry. Captain America also got to lift Mjolnir in the What If comics run, which took major events in the comics run and gave a new, non-canonical twist to the events. In this particular outing in 2006, called What If Age of Apocalypse, the fearsome villain Apocalypse only came around during the Age of Heroes, resulting in plenty of characters on hand to fight off the powerful foe. One of these characters was Steve Rogers lifting Mjolnir. Apocalypse was eventually put under Nathan Summers' control, who in turn wanted to fix Legion's time traveling, which was what started the whole Apocalypse thing this time around. Steve wasn't having any of that, fearing this new Nathan was a new tyrant and destroyed him with the hammer. Aside from Thor, having Captain America be worthy enough to lift up Mjolnir makes total sense, both in terms of his characterization throughout the MCU and that he pulled off such a feat in the comics before. Seeing the hammer fly into Cap's hand will likely go down as a fan-favorite moment in cinema, and will be fondly remembered by those who were so invested in the first 3 phases of the MCU. How did you react when Steve caught Mjolnir? Did you see it coming, or was it a total surprise for you? Do you like Mjolnir better, or have you accepted Stormbreaker as the new awesome weapon for Thor? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this in your playlist every day. Thanks for watching.